All right. Well, welcome back to another edition of Inside BBI with John and Eric. I'm John McDevitt, and with me, as always, senior editor of Big Blue Interactive, and the man who's very happy right now. Not really, Mr.
No,
Eric
no.
Kennedy.
I was
so
just marveling at your intro. It's too bad we can't use the Halloween theme where we get hit with a copyright strike.
I wanted to.
What?
I wanted to so badly, and I was like, but no, we'll get nailed instantly.
We'll get nailed, yeah. I mean, that's the best Halloween song ever. The original Halloween song.
Yes.
So
yes. So I am drinking. It's 5:00 on a Thursday. I'm having an Indigo Reef. I have another. Oh, you put the glass. I didn't have time to grab the glass. Sorry, but if you want merch, I'll put the code up a little bit later for that. But anyway, so
merch.
Here we are, Eric, and it is what it is. I think the worst part of this season so far for me really was one moment in time in that game against the Eagles. Was the second I saw that pass go off Scadaboo's hands and he go down, and I saw it. I mean, I saw it clear. I was staring at. I have a huge ass TV. I was standing up, walking forward just as it happened, and I was like, "Oh my God!" And my wife goes, "Because it's all right. He'll catch it again." I go, "No, he just broke his leg." And as soon as they came out, that was probably the most deflating thing I've seen maybe since Odell's injury, going back to what was it, that 2017, 2018, whatever that was, but that was pretty bad.
The franchise is cursed. This franchise is, even my young brother, my son called the other day and he said, "What is it with this team?" And remember, he's a young man in the Army. He's only been exposed to the Giants horror show for so long. But he says every time we get something cool, some player that's cool, he gets hurt. And Cam is this sort of an icon. It's amazing how many non-Giants fans I have talked to in the last month who love Cam Scadaboo. Fans of other teams. They're like, "Oh man, he is so cool. He's so excited." And when he got hurt, they're all as bummed, it seems like, as we are. So he's like this breath of fresh air in the league. And so someone smartly posted a comment, a thread today on that, and it's true. And my daughter is, she's a big football fan now. She's kind of grown on her, but she's been telling my wife all week, "Mom, you don't understand. This is a big deal. Cam is special. He's so cool because he's like a thing for the young folks on all the different social media platforms.
Sure.
It's beyond the football stuff. It's just he's got like this cult of personality thing going. So it just sucks. I mean, I knew the season was going to be bad, but what was giving me hope was Dart, Abdul Carter, Cam Scadaboo, and what did I say last week in the preview and then on the show? It's like, just pray these guys don't get hurt. And then moron number one is running Dart into the line late in the game when the game's already over, and I'm thinking he's just going to get Dart hurt at this point too. And I've said all along, Dart's game has running. You can't take that away from him. But when you've lost the game, back off on that. I mean, because if something happens to Dart at this point, then the roof is collapsing now, but the roof really collapsed. If Dart gets hurt and he's done for the season, we're all like, all right, we're out. We've checked out at that point.
We'll break some things down very specifically, but there's something really different about running and calling a power sweep, which is what you did. You pulled linemen and Dart ran to that side. He's literally taking it. There was no fake. There was no nothing. He was running. You're down multiple scores with not enough time left to come back in this game. If you get it, and this is my fear. This is something that I said the other day about Dayball. So Dayball needs to win. We've talked about that. And I believe, and there's something else I want to get to a little bit later, that you're starting to see some signs of why that may be even more true than we want to admit. But he has to win. He has to win some games. It can't just be I played Dart and things feel better. If you continue to lose and you can point to very specific things that the coaching staff's not doing right, you can't bring that guy back. So he knows he's got to win, which means his relationship with Dart becomes both a positive if it's working well, but a massive negative if it comes down to Dayball's doing things, specifically trying to win games, risky things to win games with a guy whose career and potential for the Giants is far deeper than anything that happens the rest of this year. Right. And that scares me.
Well, it should, because you said it last week or the week before. You said Your problem, you John, you specifically said, I don't want them calling power running games with Jaxson Dart. And I can see if the game is on the line, calling that play, but the game's over. What are you doing? I mean, if they don't get it there, so you lose by a touchdown more. I mean, but don't get Dart hurt in that situation. We won't harp on it, but I do worry about that. And Sai's starting to pick it up too in his game review, which is really good, by the way. If you don't want, I mean, read the game reviews from Sai, because he still stays very balanced and analytical. And Sai is saying that the Giants' best offensive plays with Dart seem to be when the play breaks down and Dart's improvising on his own, not when schematically what the Giants are calling and doing things. Now, again, some of this is tied to the wide receiver situation, but again, I don't see the genius of Dable at this point, and I think, as I've said before, he's tied himself to an albatross in Shane Bowen, and he's going to drag him under with him. So the question is how bad it is. But your comment is 100% spot on. Is he going to beat Dart to death trying to save his job at this point? The irony being, Dart's probably not here if Dable's not here, which I've mentioned before too. That's the irony of this situation. It's a weird situation, but if we're going to thank Dable for anything, thank him for Dart.
It is. Sorry, you're right, but we don't. To the thing I want to say real quick to you, Sash. I'll just go Sash. I'm not gonna say I don't know what the whole name is there. I don't think that Dart's calling any plays. I don't think Dart's calling the plays himself. So I doubt he called a power run. I think the plays are being sent into him regardless. Even in hurry up, I think he's still getting a play in as long as there's X amount of time left on the play clock. They can still communicate. I don't think he's calling his own plays. Maybe, but we don't know that. But either way,
in that situation, when you brought Jameis or
no, I leave Dart in the game because he's got to learn to play.
Regardless.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The thing that really bothers me with that Dayball piece, again, a couple things. One, let's not overplay the amount of piece that Dayball plays in the fact that Dart's here.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants were not taking Dart 3. That was obvious. They had other players. There doesn't seem like a quarterback was in play, thank God, that high. It was Carter. It was possibly Hunter. Who knows if it was Graham or Campbell or whoever else at the top or moving. That being said, it seems like they had an idea, and I'll give this to Joe Schoen, and where I think he kind of really does earn a little bit of credit. He certainly knows the draft and how it's going to fall for other teams. Where doesn't mean the players all pan out. That's obvious. But he had a pretty good idea, and he wasn't going to overpay to come up and get the quarterback. There were some offers up there. He didn't want to pay a ton. They still got their guy. Like, they got Dart when they did. There was all these teams that could have drafted a quarterback, and they didn't. Whether he rolled the dice and got super lucky, or he kind of knew, and maybe Dayball's like, I got to get that guy. Dayball might have given up a lot more. Now, it would have been technically justified, but if you do that, then you may not have a Cam Scoutable. You may not have. So there's.
Well, there was a report earlier. I don't know how true it is that Dayball wanted Dart early in the first round. So in a way, but I'm not convinced that if Dayball's not here, Shedeur Sanders isn't the quarterback that we take.
Dear God, yeah,
I'm not convinced of that.
I agree.
I think, again, there's too much weirdness around and too many smoke. There's too much smoke around this. Again, I'm not trying to defend Dayball. I'm just saying the one thing you get from Dayball is he fell in love with Dart. And so far, it looks like the real deal. There were comments today about, like, let's not put Dart in a gold jacket or Scadaboo in a gold jacket today. And these guys, well, no one's doing that. But man, what a breath of fresh air! And that's why the Scadaboo injuries just sucks. It's just so.
But isn't Dart, for those who say that, right? I have a real problem with Giants fans in general. Being a Giant fan myself, if you are adamant about one particular thing, I really hate it when you reverse course, when that particular thing happens, and now you want to continue to be right, say, well, this guy hasn't proven anything. If you were pounding the table, the Giants need to draft a quarterback, got to draft a quarterback, you need to go get one, you got to go until you find your guy. Well, then they did that. Now, has he 100% proven that he's going to be it long-term? No. But there are some statistical things immediately that jump out at you that say this guy is extremely successful for the environment that he was brought into, the college program that he left from, which was not particularly designed around the pro game.
Right.
That was a big thing that he was going to have to adjust to. And the fact that he has not only stepped in, but he has stepped in as a leader on this team.
Oh,
he
yeah.
he is proven, and it's the moment doesn't seem too big for him. That's all that's all you can ask for a guy that you say, we're going to try to build with this guy. If you wait until he's proven Tom Brady, till he's proven Patrick Mahomes, or he's proven Josh Allen, then you're 3 or 4 years later before you start going, oh, okay, he's our guy, and we'll start building around him. You have to have a feeling, and this guy's given that feeling. Yeah. Now you got to move forward with that guy. So I get tired of this. It's almost like you're never allowed to be happy about anything if you're a Giants fan.
I said a couple of weeks ago, if the draft was held again, Jaxson Dart would have been the first player taken, and other people are starting to say that now. So
yes.
So I firmly believe that again, things can change, but at this moment, and 2 weeks ago, if the draft was held again, Jackson's the first player taken in the draft, and for a variety of reasons. Look, he just got named Offensive Rookie of the Month.
Yes.
His first month starting, remember, because he didn't start at the beginning, so his first month starting with the worst wide receivers in the league, and with a moron running the team. So and the defensive coordinator that sucks and can't get him the ball back. So even with all those handicaps, he's still the rookie of the month in his first month of starting. So he's the real deal so far. Now that can change, but if they held this all over again, the Titans take Dart, and if they don't, the Giants or the Browns take Dart, or at that point.
Oh, sure.
So I mean, it's not just the talent; it's the attitude. I would think. We got lucky in that. Now we can get lucky if he can stay healthy. I don't know, but we got lucky finally with getting a quarterback in here that looks like. I love the guy. I think he's going to be and the thing is, the defensive coordinator, the head coaches around the league are starting to shower praise on him, and I don't think it's just gamesmanship where they're just saying nice things about him because the opponent's coming up and they're trying not to post bulletin board material. I don't think it's really that.
Right.
I think we've gone through a number of coaches now who have said, and defensive coordinators who have said, wow, he's good and he's going to be really good. So what I'm going to my final comment on this with Scatterbook, because I don't want to dwell too much on this, but it just seems that one thing after another, like Steve Smith, Victor Cruz, Hakeem Nicks, Jake Ballard, Jeremy Shockey, Plaxico Burrett. I mean, the list goes on and on. Odell Beckham, Jeremy Shockey. Did I say Shockey? Anyway, all these players we've had, and they get hurt, and now Malik Neighbors is now in that category too. The Malik Neighbors injury we've got to worry about now too. Why? I don't think it's a turf thing or whatever. But these injuries that just hit this team nonstop are so depressing that it just saps the life. I wouldn't be so bummed if they lost this game. I'm bummed that Cam's out of there now. This wrecked my week, and I've gotten emails from people this week saying how devastated they were this week. And when other fans of other teams are saying the same thing, the kid's a special kid. So
yeah, and you can't revisionist history. You can't replay the game. The fact of the matter is, though, there was just something completely different with the team after it. I mean, first off, it affected everybody. The offensive guys, seeing them all kind of go down like on their knee the way they did, you knew that it affected Dart. Now, could the Giants have turned it around? And I don't want to focus on that game too much. I know someone asked if we were going to do a review of the game, and we had talked about it and whatever. And I know I'm a little bit more okay with doing some of that stuff, but really, what's the point of reviewing that part of it? There's very specific things, though. I don't want to hear about the refs costing the Giants the games. The refs were bad in general. They were bad in a bunch of games, not just the Giants game. They blew a whistle on a field goal attempt by the Eagles that technically, even though the kick already happened, the whistle blew before the ball. They actually had the right to do it again. There was a penalty where Jalen Hurts is going out of bounds. He gets hit by Burns. There's a flag. Somehow replay helps them out and says that wasn't a flag. If that's Jaxson Dart, I'm pissed that they pulled the flag back. So, again, it's just bad refereeing.
I'm more upset about the officiating than you are. I thought it would be the other way around. I mean, the officiating was
it's horrible, but it's not the reason they lost.
I think there were, and I don't want to dwell too much on it, but they lost because the officiating was against them. the Scadaboo injury sucked the life out of
Yes.
the team. I completely agree with you.
Yep.
We were, I think it was 14-7, and
Yes.
it just devastated the team. The big thing is the Eagles finally said, you know what? I don't know why we didn't run Barkley in the last game, but we're going to run him in this game. And look what happened. Shane Bowen's idiotic defense can't stop anything, and he's out the door. I mean, he's out the door, and he'll probably drag Dable with him. He should have been fired after the Denver game, and it's gonna and he just sounds. He spoke today. He just sounds like. I think he knows. I think he knows he's dead man walking.
Well, yeah. So real quick, because I want to get to all that part specifically, but for the game, Dart made a couple of passes. Johnson once again dropped it. I mean, I think Johnson's going to be a really good 2. He's not the number 1 guy. I think you can get away with it. Now they did something in the game, and I flew off the couch the second they did it, and it was because you and I talked about it, and you were adamant. Do not do this shit again. And they did. And that's the screen to the tight end. I'm like, first off, it was a low pass. He catches it. He's not going. This dude is not nimble of foot that way. You're expecting him to get basically it's a wide receiver screen that you're running with the tight end.
Which is stupid.
Why are you doing it?
He's not Kelsey. I mean,
and on top of it, you're basically going with you got like Wandell and a couple other guys out there. They're not blocking anybody. What the hell are you doing? Like that play is dead in the water. But Johnson dropped there was a really good pass. There was another play that the Giants dropped. Slayton dropped one that he maybe could have caught.
What was with that pass interference call on Slayton? What the
F was that? It was here's the thing. It was legitimately pass interference. It was also holding on the defensive back prior to that. They could have called both. He did grab his arm, and then Slayton made it so obvious when he put his hand right in the middle of his chest and pushed back. If he doesn't really do that, I think he can just make that catch and go. But once he extended his arm, it became too obvious. I don't like it. They could have let it go because the Eagle player was pulling the arm before that. Again,
I've seen that play a million times and not get called like that.
And you know what the thing is, though? If that was Malik Neighbors, it doesn't get called. When you're an average receiver and shit like that happens, you get those penalties. I don't know why.
The master of doing that was Michael Irvin. Michael Irvin was
without a doubt.
Was a master of doing that. So
so with that, there were things the Giants could have done. I'm not saying they would have won the game. Hey, Optimus, glad you're here. I'm not saying they would have won the game, but the fact is the game would have been a lot closer, and I think the Scadaboo thing really did affect it. Now let's just get to the albatross, the elephant, the stinking shoe in the room, which is holy shit. You have a second and what was it? 29, 31,
26.
And you run for a first down. You ran for a first down so easily that I actually thought you only ran like 10 or 15 yards because it was so it was like a jog through a parking lot, the way he was just kind of going through. And I was like, what the hell just happened? And then they did it again. You had 2 backs. There were 4 backs that ran for 100 yards this past weekend and an average 10 yards a carry. 2 of them were on the Eagles. So the Giants gave up over 10 yards a carry to two backs who do 100 yards each. How do you not get fired as a defensive coordinator when you've had your game against Dallas, you have your game against Denver, and now you have coming off that game, the one and only super threat that you really, I mean, I know you were trying to cover for your DBs, but even if you're trying to do that, guys should be back and they should be able to make time. They ran through you like nothing.
Yeah, teams are stupid if they don't just run the football on the Giants at this point. I mean, the second play of the game, Barkley goes off, and I don't know why the Eagles didn't do it in the first game. I've harped on that, and they learned their lesson and they ran the ball. Look, they gave Shane Bowen the groceries, and nothing has gotten better. And I get it. There have been injuries in the secondary, and they're going to really be a problem this week. They were a problem last week. They're going to really be a problem this week. The cornerback situation's awful right now. They were down 3 corners now. And the guys that we were, remember you said screw Tay Banks. Yeah. Let's go to Art Green. Art Green's hurt now, and he's going to be out. So, I mean, even the backups of the backups of the backups are out now. So we're going to have to rely on Corey Black and that guy that we claimed off the waivers from
Peyton.
Cleveland,
Yeah.
Converse, whatever his name is. So I don't even know the names of these guys now. And then I was looking at the practice squad. There aren't any other corners on the practice squad. So I don't know who's playing corner this weekend other than, anyway, we'll get into that later. But they can't, again, there are issues. Micah McFadden is missed. Not that he was the stellar player, but he's been missed. Bobby Okereke has not rebounded. He's going to have to be a cap casualty. And Darius Muasau was a 6th-round pick who's playing like a 6th-round pick. They've got issues at linebacker, but they get gouged like this, and they're giving. It's not just the total yardage; it's the yardage per carry, and it's that's on the defensive coordinator at this point. It's time for him to go. They should have gotten him after the rid of him. But again, they tied their horse to him, and they're going to sink with him at this point. So,
yeah, it's rough. It's rough thinking, what do you do when you get into the after? And my favorite part is like, we're going to watch the film, we're going to watch the tape, whatever it is saying that he always says. Like, what did you see? You know what I see? I see that you've got a guy who in college was a guy who can make a lot of plays on the ball in the air and was around the ball quite a bit. Got a lot of turnovers. In the pros, Tyler Newman looks like he is a statue. The second that Barkley got by the linebacker, I'm literally thinking to myself, geez, if only we had CC Brown or Percy Ellsworth right now. Like, because Tyler Newman
wasn't the most physical guy out there.
Because Tyler Newman's not making that tackle. You could just tell.
Which is weird because that was his game in college.
It's just
he's a big physical safety, and that was his game in college. And he did get his hands on a lot of passes in college, and it's complete, and it hasn't worked out here. So
and then you watch the defensive lineman, so Carl Banks called Carl Banks.
We gotta get to that. We gotta get to that.
Carl Banks called out Dexter Lawrence. I have zero problem that Carl did it, but I have a feeling there was a reason why it was okay to do it. So your thoughts first, why it came out, and what your thoughts are around that whole deal.
Well, I haven't given it much thought. It sounds like you have, and I know where you're going with this. But what my thought is, this is the kind of shit that happens when a team starts collapsing. And so it's just ugly background noise at this point. And I've seen enough of this to know that this is the end. I want to tie this in too. And you came to the same conclusion. The article that was put out today defending Joe Shane's drafting setup. So I think people are starting to go for the lifeboats. They're on the Titanic, and they've realized there aren't enough lifeboats. And so I think it's every man for himself at this point. So I know where you're going. I'm going to cede the floor to you because I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I actually think it's even deeper than that. So real quick on the lifeboat one, I think that's actually, if Paul Schwartz is doing it, he got it from inside of 1925 Giants.
Which he always does.
Which means, and we've said this, I don't think Joe Shane is on the hot seat anywhere near as much as Brian Daboll is.
Correct.
And if you are laying the foundation for that, because keep in mind, Brian Daboll kind of put himself in that position when he came out and said, Jaxson Dart starting, it's my decision. There was 100% something behind that said, I am taking this. It is going to be, if I'm going to go down, right, I'm putting my guy in. You're not going to make me not play him. I'm playing him. And
right,
he did it. Now you see the articles coming out. Joe Shane, look at these things they're doing with the staff, and that's not unintentional. And the timing of it seems very, very suspicious to me. Of all of a sudden it's slipping out. I think Daboll's way more in trouble than a lot of people think.
I think the article tells us that Joe Shane doesn't think he's completely safe either, or they wouldn't be starting to put that out there. So
unless management higher up did it, you know what I mean?
Look, John Mayer's got cancer. He's already gone on record saying he doesn't want to change the GM. They've invested a lot of time, effort, and money in revamping this whole thing. I completely understand why they wouldn't want to do it. However, Joe Shane bears a tremendous amount of responsibility for the state of this team, for the record, for screw ups in the draft. Again, we've got people now inactive on Jalen Hyatt and Evan Neal were inactive last game, and they were offered trade offers. And they didn't take them. So I still think that they're on the roster because of Joe Shane's pride. Look, there's a lot of reasons why Joe Shane should go too. And I think the Paul Schwartz article is tells me a little bit that Joe Shane doesn't or John Mara is trying to set the table. This is maybe
or Tim or Chris or whoever. Yeah.
That would say, they're trying to influence public opinion, saying don't throw Joe Shane under the bus, which would support your claim. Look, he's safer. He is safer because he's the GM. He should be safer because he's the GM. I'm telling you that I don't think he should be safe.
Oh, sure.
Because of the mess and Jaxson Dart is here because of Brian Dable, in my opinion, not because of Joe Shane.
And that's
my opinion. I have no evidence to support that. It's just a gut feeling.
And that's probably pretty true. I mean, I think we haven't seen anything to the contrary that would say that's even in question. Okay, so real quick, flipping back to the second half of what we were talking about. So the Banks Lawrence thing, I think, he is. I put out a short today where I used your moron 1 and moron 2. By the way, I actually think Banks was probably given clearance to go ahead and be a little more specific about Dexter Lawrence. I have a feeling the Giants themselves are kind of testing the waters of maybe we move on from Dexter Lawrence. And there's something to be said. One of the things that worries me about a big guy like that is their play can fall off the cliff very quickly, very quickly. He's been part of a losing organization. So I don't want to hear this crap that people keep bringing up like, oh, you can't get rid of this guy. For what? We were a 3-win team last year. Right now we have 2 wins. For the 3rd year in a row, we are 2-6. This team is, no matter how much better you feel about certain things, they don't turn the corner the way you would think. Why is the front not dominating, even in pass rush? Brian Burns is consistently, Carter's consistently getting there. By the way, pressures are starting to bug me a little bit. He does need to close a little bit more. He does miss when he gets in there a little too much, and he does leave himself wide open sometimes of running by and leaving big gaps. He's going to have to kind of get that under control a little bit, but I have a feeling that would come if he was playing more consistently instead of he's in, now we take him out for a while, now we put him back in.
Or better coached.
And there is that.
Look, now, he got mugged a lot in that game too.
He did pull a nice holding on Lane Johnson, which was great.
But there were times where he didn't get the call. I mean, there was one play where the guy, Lane Johnson, had his arm completely around his neck. So
that was the play they got the holding.
Get away with nightmare.
That was the play they got the holding penalty on.
Oh, was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But Dexter Lawrence has not played well. I don't care.
No, he isn't.
Don't show me a few highlights where he got a pressure and Hurts ran through. He didn't get off the block at all. Just because you moved the guy, that guy still technically won that scenario because you never got off the block. I'm not seeing Dexter Lawrence of a couple of years ago. I'm not seeing the explosiveness. Now, is it an injury? It might be. That elbow piece, is he a little overweight? That also might be true.
Today was the first day one of the reporters said he did not wear the brace.
I saw that. Yeah.
Look, I would not sell now on him because the market's low on him. I would let the new defensive coordinator and the new head coach determine his fate. But look, you've been honest for a while and you've been correct about Dexter Lawrence hasn't been playing up to par. Cy has now jumped on the bandwagon and it's becoming clear. And I think Carl Banks' comments hit a little too close to the sun, and I think, like you said, maybe he was green-lit to do that too. So,
what did you think of Dexter's response? He's delusional. It's a weird response.
Look. If someone came up to you, John, and told you that you suck, I mean, not you just suck, but you really suck because you're not even. It's like the Tay Banks stuff. It's like you're. It's not just that you don't have. It's not the ability, John. You just don't have heart. You'd be really defensive and really pissed off. But is
that what he said though? What he said is they're not respecting you the way that they did. That you got to really step it up a little bit. If you're Dexter Lawrence, can you honestly come out and say your play is just as good as it's been in the past?
He called him soft. He pretty much called him soft, and he said
he did. That's a big no-no in the NFL.
Look, to me, this is the kind of shit that happens when losing teams. This is the kind of crap. And we're going to hear more and more of it at this point. I feel sorry for Jaxson Dart because the guy's a winner, and and this shit is going to start wearing on him. So look, he's doing everything he can do to win. And Scadaboo got hurt, and he's already back in the facility. And
Right.
God bless him, he's already, scooting around on his. He's probably got one of those things where he's got his leg up and he's scooting around, and he's going to do his part. And these rookies are. It's kind of embarrassing that they're the ones that have to carry the torch and say, "Come on, guys, get your heads out of the ass and let's win some football games." And that so like you've talked about a lot lately is the losing. The losing has a stench to it. I'm paraphrasing you, but has a stench to it,
Sure.
and it's on all these players now.
Yes.
Not the new ones. I'm talking about the old guard, the Slaytons, the Dexter Lawrences.
Exactly.
I mean, I worry about Andrew Thomas. Andrew Thomas had his first bad game of the year, not up to his standard. It wasn't typical Andrew Thomas game. So John, it's just time to turn the page again. I don't know. I don't want to, but it's not working. If we go into next year with Brian Daboll as the head coach again and Shane Bowen as the defensive coordinator, which I don't think is going to happen, but if that happens again, we're all going to be like, "What are you doing?"
Well, I think the hardest part about anything where somebody, I've heard it a lot on BBI, BigBlueInteractive.com, for those who don't know. I've heard it a lot that Brian Daboll with Jaxson Dart, you got to give him more time. Look how well, they're better. They're closer. He can kind of turn us around. You got to stick with it. Okay, let's say that's true, and I don't believe it, but let's say that is true, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have made a major point about this, and I 100% agree with you. You bring him back. Who are you getting to be your defensive coordinator? Because so far what we've seen is quality defensive coordinators who have a goal in life of becoming a head coach do not want to come here and work for Brian Daboll.
For at least two reasons. And
Wake Martindale, I almost think, was kind of forced onto Daboll. I don't think Daboll was going out of his way to choose him. I almost think Giants management and ownership had a say in that. Because remember, Wake interviewed to be the coach of the Giants. Like there was an interest there already. I think his age probably was kind of like, let's make you, we love your defense, but look how quickly that relationship eroded very fast. Now you got milquetoast Bowen, who clearly I don't think the players respect him. I don't think. Yeah, and I don't think the players respect him. And I don't see anything from him. In fact, he does shit at times where I'm like, wait a minute. Half the time you're playing this weird sort of passively doing stuff, and then you're calling a blitz deep in in the goal area where you're exposing your already very weak secondary when it's that close to a quarterback who isn't holding the ball very long. Blitzes work great if a quarterback holds the ball a little bit, not so much if he's really quick with the ball. And Nix was just dumping it very fast in that game. There was no reason to do that, and he just made himself so vulnerable. It's inconsistency in thought, which both Daboll and Bowen do with what they do, that really bugs me.
I don't think he's a bad guy. I just don't think he's good at his job. I think he's over his head, and it's sad when I read his comments now when he has his meetings on Thursday with the press. He admits it. He says, I'm making mistakes, but that keeps happening. I've got to do better. I keep making mistakes. The players keep making mistakes. It gets to the point where, again, there has to be accountability. So it doesn't matter if you're, you're talking politics or a corporation or you name it, teaching, whatever profession. If you continually not deliver, there has to be consequences for you not delivering. And he's not. If you hire a plumber and he can't fix your pipe, you got to get a new plumber. He can't fix the pipe. He's a nice guy, but he's not good at his job. And like you said, and I've said, my big fear is if you're a defensive coordinator and Brian Daboll's here, you're like, geez, he is on the hottest of hot seats. Why would I want to go there? The irony here is the Giants roster is actually very talented. People are going to be like, bullshitter. No,
it is.
Jaxson Dart, Malik Neighbor, Scadaboo, Abdul Carter, Brian Burns. We list Andrew Thomas. We keep going down the list. That doesn't mean they have holes. Of course they have holes, but there are some headliners. If you tell a prospective coach that you're settled at left tackle, you're settled at quarterback, you got good running backs, you got a number one wide receiver, you can rush the passer with four different guys, people are going to be like, where do I sign up for that? The tragedy is we're wasting time with good players here, and as you keep pointing out, the NFL is actually, the Giants could do some damage. They could have been 5-2 heading into this game very easily, and not counting the Eagle game, but they blew 3 games they shouldn't have blown, and here we are. So it just sucks the life out of you. And anyways, do you want to talk 49ers?
Well, yeah. Well, when and if, or if and when, I guess it would be, if and when Daboll or Bowen gets fired as defensive coordinator, right? And let's say it's the end of this year. So let's just use the end of this season. So when Bowen gets fired at the end of this season, a defensive coordinator, maybe he can write a book. It says, 34 games. He only had 34 games to get himself better. Anyway, sorry. Got to be careful where I walk that line. So there's one other thing about the coaching thing I do want to touch on, and that is Brian Daboll. I am beyond fed up with Brian Daboll. And it really goes back a couple of games where it stood out to me that, holy shit, there's a real problem here. Mm-hmm. And that was the Philadelphia game at home. And I know you can make, not you, but anybody in chat or whoever's listening to this, we're watching this when you're watching, you can make fun of what I'm about to say if you want to. But it was, to me, very telling. There are things about coaches that's a prerequisite to be an NFL head coach. Daboll running back to the medical tent and acting like a goddamn moron, like his girlfriend was in there and he was like, "Oh my God, come out here," and it was so embarrassing. And the Giants are lucky they only got fine money for that,
right?
Because then you think about it. Now you got Scadaboo running back there, who I could understand him, and then he should get a little bit of a, hey dude, that shit can't happen. You're a player, you stay over here. But how do you chastise the player when the coach is doing the same goddamn thing? Was one or two plays going to make the difference in that game in the middle of, we're talking what, the second quarter? Is that really going to make a big difference at that moment? Hell no. So what are you doing? So that was one. It's his, and I've mentioned this before, that he coaches he coaches with emotion. Exactly. He coaches with emotion and he makes decisions emotionally. So I don't care about, all the analytics crap. You could do whatever you want with it. I believe in instincts. There's a huge difference between being instinctual and emotional. Mm-hmm. Brian Daboll does things emotional, and it was no more on display than the last game against the Eagles in what I think is the most embarrassing thing in general about Brian Daboll that the entire nation, the entire football world got to see. Mm-hmm. You throw a challenge flag on a play that we all agree was a shitty call by the ref.
Right.
Okay. The ref makes the announcement before you even throw the first time, before you throw your flag. They called forward progress. Again, it's a bullshit thing. But if you know the rules of the NFL, the second they say that, it doesn't matter what happens. So they come over, they collab, they do whatever. The ref walks away, looks up to the camera, talks to the world. We explained to the Giants coach that you can't challenge a forward progress. Their challenge is given back. There's no timeout. Boom. He comes back. They put the camera on Daboll, who's talking to the sideline judge. He's like, throws his flag down again. I'm like, oh my God, how stupid.
It was a hissy fit.
So I'm thinking, okay, he's thought of something else. No. It's like, I still believe it was a fumble. And if you could prove to me it was a fumble before it was forward progress, I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? The dude just told the world that forward progress was called. They are not overruling. In fact, he not only said forward progress was called, he said he explained to you why you can't challenge this. So you wasted a timeout and a challenge. By the way, that timeout and challenge, that timeout could have been useful at the end of the first half as we were coming down, where we ended up using our other two timeouts before we really wanted to use them all. We could have used one more, which would have allowed us a different set of plays towards the very end, where we end up having to kick the field goal. What happens from there, Philadelphia gets the ball back with enough time to go right down the field and score another touchdown.
Right.
That timeout was absolutely wasted because you're an idiot. You are an absolute idiot. You're so mad. And then the pass interference one, you can be mad if you want to, and that's fine. Not you, him. Be mad. You can't look like a raving lunatic on the sidelines. You've told your players you are out of control. How do you expect them? Imagine Bill Parcells running up and down the field, just screaming his headset at the refs. I can see him chewing them out. I can see him calling over, talking really sternly, but running up and down the field, all I think of is when Ricky Shaw in Philadelphia decides to do something really stupid. For those who don't know, Ricky Shaw was a backup linebacker. Decides to do something stupid, and and Parcells calls him. He goes, Ricky, come here. You get a penalty on that play. You get thrown out of this game. You're walking back.
Right. Though we have seen, to be fair, we have seen Tom Coughlin come close to that, like the Kiwanuka play. But you're right. I'm not discounting that. Look, it sucked because those calls directly influenced the outcome of the game. I'm not saying they would have won the game, but I can see why he's mad. But you're correct in this. It's just another part of the equation that why he's digging his own grave here. It's the lack of control. It's the not getting the defensive coordinator. He can't win in the NFC East. It's all this other stuff. So I suspect people, and I think it's very suspicious, the article with Paul Schwartz today.
Yes.
I think it's clear that unless something dramatic happens in this last half of the season, Dable's gone. So we'll see. Things could change, but I doubt it. The problem is injuries are starting to mount. The secondary is a mess right now, and we're going to come up against a team that loves to run the football. It's a physical football team. They saw what the Eagles did, so you know what they're going to do. And plus, our secondary is going to be like Corey Black, and I don't even know what the name of the other. What is the? It's one of those hyphenated names.
It's something.
It's Bernard Converse. So
what happened to the Peyton dude? They just got off.
Oh, that's right. That's correct. He's on IR, but
No, I thought they activated, didn't they?
No, he's designated for return, which means the clock's ticking. So they can activate him this week.
So why do they have to list him on the injury report if he's designated to return? Because technically, he's not returned.
Because that's the way that's just the way it works.
Okay.
So he's designated for return, which starts the 3-week window. They don't have to bring him off IR, but they did that last week when who came off IR last week? I can't even remember. But
Gano came off IR.
Yeah, that's who it was. So he was designated, and then on Saturday, Gano officially got off of IR. So they'll do the same thing. So that's actually a good call. But he's only had 2 practices in a while.
Yeah, I mean, what do you expect? I mean, I didn't even hear the guy before.
He might be the starting corner. So, I mean, because Cordell's going to be out, Art Green's going to be out. So you've got Ty Banks and Art. So who's out here? We've got.
Well, is Cordell officially out? I mean, I think if he gets cleared,
he didn't practice.
But he has to be cleared to practice, doesn't he? He can come back and do light stuff, but I don't know that he can participate.
The reporters say that the fact that he was out again today is really bad sign that he's not going to be playing. Yeah. So Debo's out, Flott's out, Art Green's out. So that leaves Deontay Banks, Andrew Phillips, Nick Jones, Corey Black, Bernard Converse, and the guy in IR. So
it's kind of like the linebackers from 2006. If you remember when they were like pulling guys off the street, which isn't, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the defensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, Shepard, wasn't he one of the linebackers that the Giants basically had to pull in and start playing in 06? I'll have to go back and look. I think so. So I know we're going to start talking about.
I always butcher his name. Sorry,
it's just Gano.
No, I always butcher his name.
So we're going to talk about the 49er game real quick, but I'm going to throw this up here since you did mention it. There's something I wanted to point out. I used this before. I want to point this out, though, right? While we're talking about how shitty the Giants are, here's one reason why I think a lot of folks might be shocked if the Giants are buyers. If they win Sunday somehow.
Buyers?
Hold on. They still might be a buyer because they're looking at the rest of this division, which I said it before. I thought the rest of these teams were were overrated going in. Washington has a lot of problems. They played again without Daniels, but their defense is not great in any stretch of the imagination. In fact, if the Giants had started Jaxson Dart in that first game, who knows what that game might have been like there, because Wilson just could not get anything done. Dallas' defense is a sieve. The only game that they've done very well with was when they beat Washington the week before, when Daniels got hurt in the middle of the game, but also Washington had no wide receivers in that game. So you're looking at this division, the Giants have been bad, but if they won a couple of those other games that they should have won, they're actually better than the other two teams. So I think that's one of the things that's going to keep management kind of focused on let's just see how this shakes out for a little bit. But it's also an indictment with as bad as everybody else is. Washington's not going anywhere with their head coach. They're fine with it. Dallas is probably not going anywhere with their head coach, but you never know. And Philadelphia is Philadelphia. They're not even going to think about it. The Giants are the one team here with the guys that you've got. You thought you would be better. Your coach has been there now for 4 years. He's got his quarterback. If he continues to lose, he's going to be the odd man out. If you look at, again, I did the 6-week block thing. I said the Giants had to have any real semblance of like, oh, we're still involved in this. And I know, don't laugh. They would have to go 4-2 or a minimum of 3-3. Well, they've already lost 2, so that would mean they'd have to win 4 in a row or 3 of these next 4 games, and that seems like a murderer's row with the situation they're in at the moment. The 49ers one, which we're about to talk about, I'm not as worried about this game per se. I don't know that they'll win, but I don't think they're going to be out of it by any stretch of the imagination. The 49ers are very beat up. They are not that good in a number of areas. It's Christian McCaffrey that scares the crap out of me. The Bears, who knows? But then the Packers and Lions, those are 2 tough games in a row there. This is going to be one of those things right here. This stretch, if the Giants don't win at least 2 of those games, I think Daboll could be gone. But I think Daboll could be gone at the bye week.
You keep saying that you're putting up these things and saying they've got to win these next so-and-so next games, which are correct, but they keep losing.
No, my point is, though, if they don't win, I'm saying if they don't win 2, John, I think Daboll could be fired at the bye week.
John, the roof is going to collapse, and the defense is not only atrociously coached, but they're losing players now. So the 49ers are going to run the ball up and down the field, and when they want to throw, they're going to throw against – this is why Joe Shane shouldn't be ignored here as being part of the problem. Jalen Hyatt's on this team, and yet today, or was it yesterday? Yesterday, Jaxson Dart's talking up about Ray McLeod and how he's working after practice with him right now. So they're getting guys off the street who are going to come in here and probably do better than the draft picks that Shane traded up to get. So, look, the wide receiver situation is a nightmare right now because of Neighbors being hurt and then all the other crap. The decision to re-sign Darius Slayton was a bad one in hindsight now. And the wide receiver core still is crap. The secondary is a mess right now. And part of that was the decision they've made at safety. Letting Xavier McKinney go looks terrible, especially when Tyler Nubin looks like a complete bust, too. And look, you and I are a little bit higher on Javon Holland, but he hasn't lived up to the contract either. So some of this is on the general manager. A lot of this is on the general manager. But
no, you're fine.
Well, I know I commend you for still looking at the schedule and saying, got to have a win here or how many wins there. I look at this and it's like right now I'm in countdown mode to the offseason already. If they steal some games here, I'll come on here with you and be like. Because look, when the Giants win, I feel good. When they don't win, I'm like, I don't want to update the site. I don't want to think about the Giants. I don't want to watch the late games. I don't want to watch Monday Night Football. I'm just like, I don't want to do it. But when they win, I'm like, yay! I'm happy.
Let me ask you a question because I'm curious because you and I think I'm pretty deep diehard blue. I think you're I would say you're just as diehard. I think we take some things a little bit differently, but which of the 2 losses recently, Eagles, Broncos, are you more upset about?
I'm more upset about the Eagles only for one reason than the Scadaboo injury. But if you take the Scadaboo injury out,
okay, yep.
By far the Denver loss. The Denver loss was completely. That was a historic meltdown. That historically that's never happened before. And we talked about there's over 1,000 games that's never happened before. So it have to be the Denver game. Look, the Eagles are the defending Super Bowl champions. So even if the Giants, the officiating went the right way and Scadaboo didn't get hurt, that was going to be a tough game to win. And they were looking for revenge. So, but easily the Denver game. But between the two, I tell you what, I would have rather gotten blown out 60-0 in both games than lose Scadaboo. That's how I feel.
Oh,
Scadaboo may never be the same player again. I mean,
that's true.
The
comment about the surgery thing, by the way, real quick, I know they said no additional surgeries. That's not exactly what they said. What they said was What he
you're
said
correct.
was, "There's no additional surgeries scheduled right
That I
now."
know of. Right.
Like, because
Yeah.
infection may change it. He's fixing ligaments after the fact. Right now, they just stabilized the ankle and closed an open wound.
He
That's
basically
not
said,
good.
I'm not aware of any new surgeries coming up, which that's not the same thing. So you're
Yeah.
correct.
So
So
for me, the Bronco game is definitely the harder of the two losses. The Eagle game was more expected. What I didn't like was two very bad things, which was the idiotic behavior of our coach, which made us look even more high schoolish. Scadaboo's injury just took all the life out of the go forward. I think that's the harder part from that. It wasn't the loss to the Eagles. It was Scadaboo's injury took the go forward part out for the rest of the year for him. Like that piece that he brought. But if I look over the whole thing, I still feel like the Broncos game, not only am I mad that you lost, you should have won the goddamn game. Like that game is not in question. Dallas is still a little, okay, you could say maybe, maybe not, but you could have won that game. So that's two really big games. The Eagles game I'm not so worried about. It sucks, but I also kind of thought Philadelphia was really going to amp up to win that game. They were going to do everything they could after getting embarrassed. And we're pretty shorthanded. We were shorthanded at wide receiver. We became even more shorthanded in the secondary. It was starting to get to the point where I was kind of like, okay, let's just maybe kill the clock the rest of the game. I don't want to risk anybody else getting hurt. Let's not get Dart hurt.
That's what I was afraid. They were going to get Dart hurt.
And that's my fear with Dayball with the schedule. So the reason I brought the schedule up and said this is why they need to win, X number of games. Dayball needs to win those games. And that's the problem is he's going to try to win those games desperately and maybe take chances with his guy that in a season that may or may not be lost. And it depends. Like, two more games, if they lose two more, now you're 2-8. Now you really do need to be like, all right, let's work on things, but I'm not going to risk running them, all over the place. But the other part is, as you mentioned, all the comment about and Cyrus' write-up was interesting in two things. He wrote up that Dart's play is just way above what you could have expected.
Yes.
But that he's doing too much off schedule. And maybe he doesn't need to. I don't know that you can say that. I truly, and I wish we could have, we need to get Cy on again because I want to actually question him directly on it. It's really difficult to say that when the Giants receiving core is shit.
Right,
I don't even know if they're running good routes. Jalen Hyatt, I made the statement, and I'll take all.
Remember, he didn't play.
I'll take all the criticism. I said he was going to do it. You know what I totally forgot is that with the defensive backs being a little thin, if they're going to bring anybody up or they're going to play anybody who's on the active day roster is going to have to be able to play special teams too. And Jalen Hyatt does one thing, and he doesn't even do that very well. He does not play special teams. You're not going to see him covering. You're not going to see him returning. So when you don't have that, then you have no reason to be on the roster.
He's got a toothache.
Again, when you're making for this year so far, when you're making $500,000 a catch, I'd smile a lot too and hurt my teeth. But
yeah. And we've also learned that the Giants had a lot of sex 9 months ago. So
they weren't winning games.
They weren't winning games.
So, like,
how many players and coaches have had babies?
Quite a few. So we've transitioned to now we actually score on the field now. That's good.
And then other places.
Yeah, that too. But so right now for this 49er game, Javon Holland, like you said, he may be back. That'll be good. That'll be helpful if he's okay. Paulson Adebo's going to be out. That seems pretty much
Green's
done.
going to be out. Dable's going to be out, and it looks like very strongly Flott's going to be out. So our corner is going to be
Flott, and Flott is out. Flott's out because he got totally cracked by Bobby Okereke with basically Flott throws a punch at the ball and misses, and Okereke throws a punch at the ball and drills Flott right in the face.
But the problem is this gets back to the thing that I've said with Flott all along. He keeps getting hurt. So look, we've both come to the conclusion, you way before me, that Banks needs to go and Flott is the better player. But I've said all along, Flott's biggest problem is he keeps getting hurt. And here we are again. He's hurt again. So I'm not investing a lot of money in Cordell Flott when he hits free agency because if you don't play, you can't be relied upon. So
Right.
So we'll see what happens. I would make him a contract offer, but I'm not I'm not breaking the bank for him or anything like that. So what do you think about the 49ers?
Well, I mean, the 49ers game, the big problem that I see obviously is Christian McCaffrey. I mean, he hasn't had a great year so far. I mean, it's been a good year. It has been a great year, not to his standards. But the Niners don't have a lot at wide receiver. They're limited outside. I don't know if Pearsall is going to play or not play.
Somebody was designated for return for them too, wasn't it?
Was it Brandon Ayuk?
I have to check. I haven't started my preview yet, so I have to check. We're doing the 49ers. We advertise this as a 49er preview, and I haven't researched the 49ers yet. But there was one of the two wide receivers that was designated that they thought might be back, and the other one no. I have to check.
So Brandon Ayuk is listed as out. They don't intend to designate to return. That was on the 27th, so he's out. He's not playing. Ricky Pearsall is questionable. He did not practice on Wednesday. Brock Purdy is still questionable, but he was limited on. Quite frankly, I'd rather have Mac Jones starting because I want a more stationary quarterback for Abdul Carter to get a chance to get some sacks on. But then again, Purdy's not exactly a sprinter, so I'm not overly concerned. They have a number of injuries themselves. Their offensive line's been banged up. Their defense has a lot. They've lost a lot of really good players on their defensive side of the ball. So here's the other thing, though. West Coast team traveling east, 1:00 games. They cover the spread 49% of the time. The Giants had the same thing with the Chargers earlier this year, and that looked like we were kind of worried, like, oh boy, here comes the Chargers. They're playing really well, and the Giants are putting in their quarterback for the first time. This is a little different. You're going to be missing Cam Scatterbo. So for the Giants' perspective, running back wise, Tracy's going to be the starter. Devin Singletary will be the 2. Are we finally going to see Turbo Miller activated? And there was some question when I made a comment. Why would the Giants try out this guy who hasn't been with anybody all year? He's a multi-year veteran, but hasn't played much at all. Why would they try this guy out to see if you're going to have him when you could just move Miller up? And someone goes, well, maybe the Giants know something about Miller you don't know. That's true. Then why are we carrying Miller on the practice squad if you never want to put him in an actual game?
Well, I don't look. Miller was never going to play as long as Scatterbo was healthy. The problem right now is I'm sure they would like to bring him up. The problem is they've got so many injuries at other spots. Can they bring him up? So they may be forced to do things like they've done before when they say they only can bring up 2 guys with standard elevations without actually signing someone to the 53-man roster, and that means cutting somebody and exposing him to waivers. So I'm sure they'd love to bring Turbo, and he might be up on the roster, but the problem is the issues in the secondary and at wide receiver may cause them not to be able to do that. And we went into another game this year, didn't we, where we had 2 running backs?
Yes.
Because everyone was worried about that.
Was it
it was early. I don't remember. There was a game where people were freaking out because we had only had 2 running backs on the roster.
Was it New Orleans? Was it the New Orleans game?
I don't remember. It was that early though. It was around that time. And then probably it was with Tracy was out. So that would jive with it. So
And for tight ends, Bellinger is hurt right now too. We're not sure. He had a neck issue and the necks with Giants should always be taken with a grain of salt because their medical staff doesn't have a good track record with neck injuries.
No, terrible track record with that.
So Bellinger, what really bugged me last week too is you had Manhurts activated and he hardly played in the game, and I'm like, why the hell? Why would you even bother then activating that guy if you used him minimally at best? We were doing multi-tight end situations, and it was Johnson Bellinger. So Manhurts, besides blocking, brings absolutely nothing to the table. So if you're not going to use him for that, then what's the point?
And the other thing is, whether you don't like how they've been playing or not, Theo Johnson and Daniel Bellinger's blocking have improved enough that I think you can sort of, and I think that's what's happening is Manhurts' role is diminishing because of that. So, and they
make Fedoni active though. So you're going with 4 tight ends, and 2 of them didn't really play on offense at all.
Yeah,
which is weird.
Look. The problem is, John, is this: I look at the San Francisco 49ers and I look at their coaching staff and say, my God, I wish we had a coaching staff like that. And that's true of other teams. But the 49ers are so well coached. They can go through all these injuries. I mean, they've had worse injuries than we have had. And they stay competitive and they're in their games because the coaching staff knows what the hell they're doing. And so our moron number one, moron number two, you can go down the list, 3, 4, 5. We don't have the coaching staff. We haven't had the coaching staff for a decade. And so until they fix that now, we're starting to get the roster. And people are going to say, well, that's why you should keep Joe Shane. Not so fast, my friend. But that's a whole other discussion. But we have a coaching issue at this point, too. I mean, again, there's no way you should lose the Denver game. The Denver game was won. There's no way you should have lost the Dallas game. The Dallas game was won. Those are 2 losses right there that would have been huge. And look where we would have been. You know, we'd have 2 more wins right now, which is huge.
Well, and if you lost those 2 games completely differently, then you could say, okay, you know, something happened here, and now you guys got to learn to handle that situation. You got to learn how to handle this situation. It was the same situation. You had a lead very late in the game, and somehow you managed to do the same. Yeah, it is the same damn thing, and you just totally screwed it up. So this game, to me, though, I really believe that this potentially is Dayball's coaching for his job right now. Like this game.
Well, I think he's gone. I mean, let's say
I would be very I would fire him 3 weeks ago.
I know you were talking about divorcing them from.
Well, not just because of that. I just don't like him. I mean, you can't be as bad as he's been. Again, I showed this before. Since they started, and you go, you know, I broke it into 2 halves. Since they were 6-2, I know they went up to 7-2. He was 2-5-1 to finish the year. 2-5-1. From there, they win 6 games, but they beat a couple of really shitty teams later on. Then they win 3 games. Now you're winning 2, and it's the 3rd year in a row that you've had 2 wins in your first 8. At what point do you go, this is just not a good coach?
And well, I'm there at this point. And again, it goes back to he screwed up. And I think there is something, again, I don't have any proof. I do suspect that Wink Martindale was handed to him. I agree. I just my gut feeling. And please, for the love of God, Giants fans, BBI fans, will you stop touting Wink Martindale? Wink Martindale might have been better than Shane Bowen, but not by much. He was awful defensive coordinator. He was bottom ranked here too. Everyone has this fond memory of him because he was aggressive, but statistically his defense was as bad as Shane Bowen's.
Yes.
So stop rooting for mediocrity. Both suck. There's a reason why Wink's not in the NFL anymore. We need a good coordinator, not a Wink Martindale, not a Perry Fuel, not any of these losers. We don't need. You and I had a show months ago where we listed all the defensive coordinators they've had in the last 15 years. It's a train wreck.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
It's bad. Some of these guys you forgot about, but it's like every 2 years, it's like, oh my God, I forgot about that guy. And you know what? Most of them are not defensive coordinators anymore. So it shows you they wreck their career here. So most of them are like, you know, this ruined them.
It's bad. It's epically bad where they're at. They were. I pulled up the stats the other day. They've been 31. I think it was 23, 31, 32 in run defense year after year. It's just pathetic at this point. And I don't think you can. I don't.
Yeah, but Paul. When they went to the Super Bowl that year, the Giants were ranked 31st or 32nd in defense. They only got hot in the playoffs. Go back and look at the defensive rankings that year. The only reason the Giants got to the playoffs that year was Eli Manning, Victor Cruz, and Hakeem Nicks. That was the only reason they got there. The defense was they couldn't run the ball. The Giants were near dead last.
Yeah, they were bad.
And they were terrible on defense. And so that's the same thing that, again, Perry Fuel was not a good defensive coordinator, but there were people that are even worse than him. The real bane of the Giants' existence here has not just been their inability to select head coaches. They can't pick defensive coordinators worth a damn anymore. Spags is the only guy that they got in recent memory that was any good.
I think. No, and I truly hope if a coaching change happens, which again, I'm not 100% convinced yet that the Giants are going to do it, but they seem to be laying the groundwork for if they're going
Yeah.
to. They've kind of already put it out there a little bit. Hey, our scouting is really good now, and and it's separating those two sides of the house, separating it. Coaching's over here, the scouting stuff is over here. If we do go coach, I really do want a traditional defensive coach as the head coach. I want a guy. I don't want him to be the defensive coordinator, though. I want him to be the head coach. You get a guy and make him your defensive coordinator, and you can have a hand in it. But I mean, look what Vrabel's done with the Patriots. Now, by the way, the Patriots are an absolute.
Why can't we have Vrabel? Please, why couldn't we get Vrabel? Why couldn't we have Sean Payton? I mean,
the Patriots are an absolute roadmap for what the Giants could do here. Remember, they drafted Drake May, and they had Gerard Mayo as their head coach. They fired Mayo at the end of that year, and then they bring in Vrabel. You can get it.
And of course, the morons didn't do it. The Giants didn't do it.
But what I'm saying is, just because a quarterback was drafted with one coach doesn't mean another coach won't come in. In fact, Jaxson Dart might be the beacon for why some coach wants to come here.
Yeah, Jaxson Dart has been so good that it makes my earlier point moot that I made all early this year about if you fire Dable, you might have trouble attracting a new head coach because of the quarterback is already here. I did not expect Dart to be this good. I don't think anybody did. And now Dart, like you said, has become the beacon to attract people into this situation. So thank God I was wrong about that, because it's the opposite's true. Again, stay healthy, Jaxson, please. This week I'm knocking on wood. I'm knocking on wood. But yes, it's the completely opposite thing. So the risk here, John, is this, and this will be my last comments, is you've already posted the schedule. The only time the schedule softens a little bit in my eyes is the last quarter of the season. So they could lose a bunch of games in a row here. And if they win 2 or 3 games down the stretch, does that convince ownership with John Mara having cancer to say, well, maybe one more year? I hope they don't go that route.
So with that in mind, I'll say this. This is me personally. To the New York Giants. If you lose 2 more games in this stretch of the middle 6 that I talked about, or even 3 more games, if you're 2-8 coming up here, or 2-10 when as you roll through and add through the 12, if you're 2-10, or even 3-9, you need to fire Brian Daboll before you get, or right at the bye week. You cannot go into those last games with games against Minnesota, who may be out of it by then. They're a 3-win team. They're down. They lost another quarterback. They're hoping McCarthy, now coming back, can actually do something. It's not looking so good for Minnesota. They got a lot of issues. You've got a Raiders team coming up down the road that is falling apart internally, and the move to get Pete Carroll to come in probably isn't going to last more than this season. That's another one. You're going to get Dallas in the last game of the season, coming in, playing outdoors when their season's probably going to be over in the Northeast. Nothing to play for those guys.
Right.
You don't want to win 2 or 3 of those games and then go, hey, Daboll's coming back. Don't let that part of it. If you're out of it, by the time you go to New England on that Monday night game, fire Brian Daboll and be ready to move on for the season. Don't let those other games influence what you're going to do.
You and I have had a lot of ex-players come on here and we've interviewed them. And when we've stopped the broadcast and we've talked to them off camera. A lot of them have said, oh man, the stories I could tell you guys about how it really was behind the scenes with things. I would love someday, and there must be non-disclosure agreements, or more likely, incredible fear that if you whistle blow that you'll never get a job in the NFL. I would just love one of these Giants head coaches that gets axed to say, you don't understand what a nightmare it is behind the scenes with this team. And it's just discombobulated mess. And I'm amazed that it doesn't happen, but it never does happen. Not even with the Giants, but with other teams. So I would think, what is the interest in? I was going to ask you, what's the interest with Madeline Burr?
She's attractive, so I think a lot of people have been putting that out there. Because listen, if you can get her to come on, feel free. I've reached out to her. It didn't get.
I see a lot of tweets with her with Taylor Swift. That I don't know. I don't know about that. So yeah, but
Okay.
anyway, we won't get into that.
So the hot E. There you go. I like it. So that being said, this game, I think this is really the Custer's last stand for Dayball.
Is it though?
I think it is. I think if you lose the next couple of games, if you lose this game, now you're going on the road to the Bears. While that's a winnable game, your players are going to start checking out. The injuries are now. Here's the other thing: the NFL trade deadline comes up. Is it November 4th or November 9th?
4th, isn't it? I think it's the 4th. I mean, while you talk, I'll look it up.
I think you're right. I think it is the 4th. Yeah, if you can find it.
Yeah, I'll look it right now.
If the Giants lose, they really should be sellers and not really worry about what it is. Somebody else put the 4th. I think Evan Neal at this point, it's an embarrassing joke.
It's embarrassing.
You have him. Jalen Hyatt, at least you had him active for a lot of games. You didn't dispass because he doesn't do anything else. But Evan Neal, you won't even activate him. Even when you decided James Hudson's not going to be playing, you didn't activate. Even when we're a little concerned that we had some, JMS was out. So now you got your backup center playing, and your other backup center is the right guard. So if something happened to your center, your guard would have to move over. Here's the guy that you have moved to guard, and he's inactive. You don't even put him on the roster, period. He doesn't even play special teams for field goals and extra points. Nothing. This guy does nothing. Move on. There's got to be a team desperate for.
Why would anyone trade for them at this point now? Evan Neal, like you said, can't even get on the game day roster, and Jalen has been on the game day roster and has done nothing. If we are to believe the national reporter who reported, and I don't know if it was Rappaport or who said it, but that Neal, there was some slight interest in Neal and Hyatt back in August. The fact that this team didn't get rid of them at that point is just another indictment on them. And so now at this point, like, even if you had interest in Evan Neal, you're looking at the Giants, you're like, God, he can't even get. So I'm not even sure. I don't know whether you believe the reporter earlier. I'm going to believe him that there was some interest. I think they missed their mark on that. I think there was an opportunity and they blew it. So if they can do it, John, they can get a 7th round or even like a swap.
It'd be a conditional. Yeah, it'd be a conditional or a swap. And it might even be a 20.
Evan Neal's not going to play this year. Josh Azudu, I would play Josh Azudu above.
Well, here's the other thing. Somebody else mentioned, and I don't remember, is it Fowler, was saying that one of the targets that the Giants might be trading is Josh Azudu. I'm like, he's on IR. So who's trading for a guy that didn't do anything last year and hasn't played a down this year?
No. That doesn't even pass the smell test. No.
So, but if there was a legitimate offer for Kayvon Thibodeau, I'm sorry, but I am considering it. I know a lot of other guys don't. I don't think you really. I shouldn't say it like that. I don't think a lot of people understand what goes into putting the roster together, what goes in further. Kayvon Thibodeau's under contract one more year. That makes him the most tradable in reality, where you can get hired value for him because you can use that as a bargaining chip for the other team. It says, listen, You're going to be able to control him for another year. It's when you have those rental situations where guys' contracts up at the end of the year, you get minimal back for that dude because they're like, I'm only going to get him for like 12 games. What am I going to do with that? So they would get him for another whole year. I'm not saying actively shop him out there. And I don't necessarily want to move him for a wide receiver per se. But if I can get a good draft pick or 2 draft picks for Thibodeau, I'm sorry, but what he's produced on the field doesn't move the needle in the wins and loss column at the moment. And Abdul Carter ultimately is going to have to move in and be a starter. You're going to have to put Carter and Burns on the field at the same time to get your full value of Carter out of the situation. I don't want to hear OC, Tuck, and Strahan. Strahan was already on the team. Right. Tuck was a defensive tackle. They're not the same thing. OC was the other defense end. We played a 4-man line. The third guy was Kiwanuka. But what did the Giants do with Kiwanuka? They moved him to the outside. He played more of a stand-up play until they went back to the 4-man line.
Yeah, Kiwanuka's career was kind of ruined here in the sense that he was played out of position.
Exactly. Exactly. So you can't build around 4 guys, and I'm including Dexter Lawrence. You can't build 4 guys up front where you're sinking a shit ton of money into them while the middle of your defense is basically crap. Okereke is going to go. Musau is what he is. He really should be backing up McFadden. So when McFadden comes back, yes, but by the way, Who was ringing the bell going, McFadden's a potential all-pro? Nobody. So you know that you still need linebackers. At some point, you've got to move some pieces to move. The key, though, is what, and I cannot believe I'm going to invoke his name. What the one guy, Mr. Go Terps, used to say all the time is you got to get your quarterback. Now, he thought you just draft one every year, which was ridiculous. But once you do get that guy, right, you get that. Now you've got Neighbors. We got to hope he's going to be okay. You've got Scadaboo if he's going to be okay, but you're planning that he's going to be. But you've got him on your roster. You've got Tracy who can back that guy up. We've got and Andrew Thomas is your franchise left tackle.
Right.
You build with these guys. You've got Burns. He's under contract. He's playing to his. You've got Carter, who you just drafted third in the draft. You're building with him. Kayvon's been there since 22. He's on the end of his original contract. He's got one more year, but he's going to want his money. And as you've said, we don't even know that he wants to be on the East Coast, that he wants to be with the Giants. Right. And if that's the case, the Giants have to strategically look and make moves. The biggest regret that you and I both have is the Giants did not move Saquon Barkley in 22 when it would have been hard to do because you were winning, but they probably should have, but certainly in 23.
Who's running the show, though, John? Is it the?
That's a good point.
Is the owner or the Shane? I mean, it may not be Shane's call. I mean, Chris Mara and Wellington. What am I talking about? John may be saying no. I think it's come out. It's coming out more and more that the ownership isn't involved in this stuff. They certainly were in the Barkley and the Daniel Jones decisions, and so they will probably be involved in the Kiwanuka decision. So we'll have to see. What you've said makes sense. We've talked about it before. I would listen, but it has to be a serious offer because Kayvon still has value even with another year. And again, I'm still thinking this coaching staff's not going to be here. So part of me, it's like, give these guys to a new coaching staff. But if somebody's giving me crap, I'm not trading him. But if somebody,
agree.
But we can talk about that. We should probably wrap this up.
No, we'll wrap it up with that. I've got to assume you're going with, they're not winning.
I think we're in countdown mode to the offseason. I think they'll probably steal some games here or there, but the problem is the injuries are piling on. Losing Scadaboo emotionally was huge. That was a huge loss for them from an emotional standpoint. We got to hope, again, knock on wood, that Dart stays. But again, the wide receivers in the secondary are still a mess on this team, and I don't have confidence that this coaching staff can outcoach themselves out of a paper bag at this point. So I know we're going to get outcoached defensively. Our defensive coordinator is over his head. And Brian Dable, as you pointed out, seems to be an emotional train wreck at this point. So the sooner they get rid of these guys, the better. I was not for firing these coaches during the season, but I've moved. I'm like, get them away from this team sooner than later. See what Kafka can do for a few games. See what anybody else on the defensive staff can do as defensive coordinator at this point. But I'd like to root for them, but don't you feel like the roof's about to collapse on this? That's how I feel. I think the roof has collapsed. Except for Dart. Dart's the only reason I'm watching.
See, that's the part that I don't believe that that's the case. I think the worst case scenario emotionally happened in the last game, losing Scadaboo. And I think it's clouded. If Scadaboo didn't get injured in that game, and the game ultimately, maybe it was a little closer, but we still lost. You and I both went into that game thinking Philadelphia is probably going to win this one just because. So then I'm not walking away from that one feeling as bad as I do right now because I feel bad because they lost Scadaboo. I actually think this game is going to be way closer than a lot of people think, and I have a weird feeling the Giants are going to take this one out. I think Dart is going to keep this team elevated. San Francisco, by the way, got beat up on by a bad Houston team. So they're not exactly great. They are better coached than we are, and that's a big advantage to them. But then again, they do the whole West Coast, East Coast thing, and that's not been an advantage to West Coast teams. I think the game's going to be closer. I really want to see Dart kind of elevate. Now, I know Sai said, well, we got to see if he can elevate the play.
That I had a problem with. That's the only
hold up. Who are you elevating? Bo Collins?
Well, I think he has elevated them. They scored 35 points against Denver's second.
My point is, what is he supposed to do to elevate them?
I know. That was the only comment that he made that I had a problem with, is I thought he has been elevated. But look, as I said going into Philadelphia in the game before, and it didn't turn out to be. It turned out to be true in Philadelphia, but not in the game before. Reality is going to hit at some point. Talent wins, and there's only so much Dart can do. So anyway, sorry to interrupt.
I think no, you're totally fine. I think Fedoni's going to get his first and second catches in this game. I think he's going to get on the field. He's going to play in this game. I think the Giants defense is going to get a number of sacks in this game. Finally, I think that's something that they've been getting close to doing. I think it's going to happen in this game. The Niners offensive line's a little beat up, and this is their. But again, Philadelphia's was too, and they didn't live up to it. But the difference with the Eagles offense and the Niners offense is the Eagles offense has multiple weapons outside, and their quarterback is extremely mobile. The 49ers don't have an extremely mobile quarterback, regardless of which one's playing. Purdy is a little bit more than Mac Jones, but neither one of them is Dart back there. I think the Giants are going to get their sacks. They have to win the turnover game, though. That's a big deal for them. Like they can't just try to play straight up. You're going to have to get some turnovers.
Shane Bowen's the defensive coordinator. They're not afraid. Shane Bowen's again, John, you're right. If Shane Bowen's not the defensive coordinator, he's the Giants loses like 30-10. I mean, that's going to be blowout. So the thing I don't want to see is the cart coming out for Dart. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see him, and at that point that'll be it. But it's like you said, the players are going to start checking out at some point. They've already checked out on Shane Bowen. I don't care what they say. That whole thing at the end of the Denver game was so super telling about them yelling in the tunnel about
you can say whatever you want. You were pissed.
And they gave up 300 yards rushing to the Philadelphia Eagles, who haven't been able to run the football all year. So what do you think? Anyways, on that note, happy Halloween.
Yeah, so there you go. We're doing only one this week. I might make a little video about the rest of the league kind of thing, just looking across the league, but I haven't decided yet. I got a lot of stuff going on. So with that being said, subscribe, definitely like. It helps with the videos if you could like it, or if you didn't like it, like it and then comment that you didn't like it. That would be helpful. Whatever. We try to do our best here, but we try to be real about who we are and stuff. I'm not gonna pretend that
you suck.
So yeah, there you go. So with that being said, we're gonna close out, and we'll catch you again real soon. And go Giants.
Go Giants.